Hello again, and welcome to another episode of the Shardcast. I'm your host, Aaron Froats, and today I'll be bringing you more action from more unknown players from Hex TCG. As I've done in the past couple episodes, I've tried to scour the world of the internet to find new players that haven't featured before on Shardcast, and today we'll be featuring a new one named Dixie. Dixie has a YouTube channel that features pretty much a daily type of video called Game Time with Dixie, to where he puts up videos pretty much every day or two, and it ramped up about a month ago, so he's got quite a few videos on there now, which I'll have a link to at the bottom of the video here. But he did a exhibition match versus Genostel, to which they both played Sapphire Artifact decks, but they both kind of had different approaches to the deck. I wanted to go ahead and get that out to you to see what you thought about the decks in particular. So let's get you over to the action. And we'll go ahead, and this will take part from, looks like Dixie's point of view. So Dixie's playing the One Eye Open champion, which is a champion which allows you to ready your troops by using its champion power. Something that I don't believe I've featured thus far here on the Shardcast. And that actually costs 3 charges to do so. It's a diamond champion. So it looks to play in Sapphire Diamond and Artifacts. I apologize, I said just Sapphire and Artifacts earlier. So we'll get this start off. Looks like both players start with 7 cards. Dixie's going to start with 2 Sapphire Shards, a Windborn Acolyte, which is a 1/1 flight troop that he puts in play immediately, Technical Genius, Hex Engine, Eternal Guardian, as well as Slaughter Gear, Renegade, Warhulk. So we'll drop the shard and put the Windborn Acolyte into play and pass it over to Genostel. Genostel puts his own Sapphire Shard down and plays a Charge Bot. They'll have a 1/1 troop on the board as well, but he is going to have 2 charges. He is playing Feather Drifting Downriver, which allows him to give a target troop flight for 4 charges. Dixie will draw another Eternal Guardian. So if he can get up to 8 resources, the Hex Engine will help that, plus the Technical Genius. As you see, the Eternal Guardian go down to 7, the Hex Engine down to 3. The Technical Genius says that while it's in play, you may pay 1 left to cast artifact cards, or play artifacts. So the Flying Acolyte will swing for 1, Genostel will go to 19. As I was saying, the 2 Eternal Guardians in hand could prove to be a huge problem for Genostel if they come out on the board. Removing 1's already a task, removing 2 is downright almost impossible. We'll see how this plays out. Genostel drops another shard and puts Sliver the Immortal Spear onto the board. That's another card we haven't featured here in Shardcast yet. It's a 2-cost artifact that, as he's showing you, if you exhaust it, you can create a Sliver and shovel it into your deck. If you exhaust 5 Slivers that you control, you're going to deal 5 damage to target champion. However, we know Dixie's got Eternal Guardian in hand, which means that's not going to do any good. Normally that would just end the game. But if there's an Eternal Guardian on board, Dixie's not going to die to that, but we'll see who gets their cards out first, whether it's Dixie with the Eternal Guardian or Genostel with the Slivers. So the one thing about being an artifact is does not suffer to troop trauma, as we'll see right away. Genostel is going to go ahead and exhaust it, putting another copy in his deck. Normally, if it's a troop, it comes in with troop trauma unless it has speed, meaning it can't use any activated abilities on its first turn into play. In the meantime, Genostel is deciding if he's going to swing with the Charge Bot or not, decides not to, and we'll pass turn back over. So Dixie's going to draw a card for his 3rd turn, and it's a Buccaneer, meaning it does not have any more shards to play. He'll be stuck at 2 resources. Everything in hand costs 3 or more, so no cards have been played the first main phase. He's going to swing the Acolyte and the Technical Genius, knowing very well that the Acolyte can't be blocked because it's flying, and the Technical Genius won't be blocked if the Charge Bot won't die, I should say, if the Charge Bot blocks it, because it has 2 defense. Genostel's going ahead and block it anyway. The Charge Bot will come off the board. Acolyte's damage goes through, Genostel down to 18. Again, all the cards in Dixie's hand cost more than 2, so he'll pass turn back over. Genostel draws, now has 6 cards in hand. Genostel looking over his hand, trying to decide how he's going to play this out. Goes ahead and exhausts the sliver. Puts one into his deck. Uses peek, which means look at the top cards of your deck equals the number of Sapphire Threshold you have, as we're reading on the screen here. You may choose a card among them, put them in your hand, and shuffle the rest of your deck. So Genostel will now play a Sapphire Shard return. Now has 1 resource, 3 permanent. As we see the Feather Drifting Down River charge power light up because he has 4 charges. Nothing to give flight to though. Dixie draws a Spawn of Othayeg. That's one of the new cards that came out in one of the previous patches. It's a 1/1 flight troop. As you can see, when it deals damage to opposing champion, that player is going to bury a card from his deck. If all opposing champions' graveyards equal 10 or more cards, then they'll bury 5 cards instead. 2 damage go through, as there's no blockers on play, so Genostel down to 16. And Genostel's going to play Doppelgadget. That's a 3-cost artifact where at the start of their turn you can transform it into a replica of a target non-shaper artifact. So no doubt we'll see that transform into a sliver. That's a good way to ramp your slivers on board. Exhaust the existing sliver, put another copy in. This is a different play on what we're used to calling a sliver deck. Those who follow the Magic TCG know what a sliver deck is. This is a different type of sliver deck. Hex has one of its own. Dixie draws a Spawn of Othayeg again, plays it out there. So with no blockers, we'll see some cards being buried here. As the house is being swung, 3 damage coming through. Genostel, no resources, no blockers. We'll go down to 13. And we'll see him bury a card. It'll be an Ivory Pawn going to the graveyard. And still with only 2 resources, Dixie has nothing else to play. So at the beginning of Genostel's turn, going to convert that Doppelgadget into a sliver. Then draw a card for turn, up to 6 cards in hand. Genostel, you see the champion power light lit up over us still. He can give a target troop flight, but he doesn't have any troops on board. Here comes a Gearsmith. Gearsmith says, when it comes into play, look at the top 3 cards of your deck. You can put any artifact among them into your hand. If you do, it gets a permanent cost of -1. That's a 1/1 troop as well. Gives him a blocker for the Genius. The other 3 troops he's going to face are flying troops, so he can't do much about it. Unless, of course, he uses a champion power and makes it a flying troop. Oh, and he's going to put a sliver onto the board, so that makes the 3rd one. So we almost have a little bit of a race here. If Genostel can get 2 more out, as he's going to activate all 3 of them here, no doubt, to put 3 more into his deck. As we see his champion power also come out onto the chain. But that means slivers in deck. Genostel's trying to get to the rest of those slivers. At my count, I believe he has 6 additional copies in his deck now. In addition to what he had in his deck, what I imagine he was running 4. Here comes a Windborn Acolyte, I should say. Again, Dixie's stuck on 2 resources, but he's going to be able to swing here. He swings the Technical Genius and one of the Acolytes. Not trying to sacrifice the Spawn of Othayeg yet. Genostel chooses not to block, so goes down to 11 health. Dixie stuck 1 resource, can't play any of his cards, pass the turn back over. Genostel hoping to get some of those slivers. If he can get to 5 slivers on board before Dixie gets all the damage through, or gets up to 7 resources to get the Eternal Guardian out. So Genostel drops a 4th shard on the board. 5 cards in hand left. Drops another Doppelgadget, which basically says I have another sliver. That's 4. He's going to put 3 more slivers in his deck. If he can get to 1 more sliver, the game's over next turn. So Dixie trying to get enough damage through to make this a quick match here, but he's on the clock. Genostel now with 9 more copies of slivers in his deck. That's roughly about 17%, I guess. Yeah, 17% of the deck is now slivers. And Dixie's going to swing pretty much everybody he can. Here comes 5 damage coming through Genostel. Let's see if he decides to block one of the flying troops. he does. He'll trade with one of the spawn of the egg. Takes 4 damage, going down to 7. He'll bury an ivory pawn. As a result, Dixie's still stuck on two resources. We'll have to pass turn back over to Genostel. Genostel's at 7 health, Dixie at 20. Dixie has 5 troops on board, all with 1 power, 4 of them flying. Double Gadget turns into a sliver, that's 4. If he draws a sliver here for turn, that would be game. He instead puts a turreted wall out. That'll buy him 1 turn. He's on 2-turn clock now. 4 more copies go in. This should be a total of 13 copies. So he's got roughly 25% of his deck is now slivers. So he's got 1 in 4 chance of drawing one next turn. It's pretty good odds. I'll take that. Dixie still can't buy a resource. So no doubt he'll swing everybody here. He knows one's going to get blocked, but no damage will come back at him. Just still out of resources, so he won't be able to do any damage back. So he'll block 1. Surprised he didn't block the spawn to make sure he didn't have to bury any cards. Nevertheless, goes down to 3 health, and he's going to have to draw a sliver here, else the game's going to be over. Because 4 damage will come through again next turn. Unless he can drop 2 flying troops on the board. Here comes a shard. 5 resources, 2 charges, 4 cards in hand. A Doppel Gadget, but that's going to be 1 turn too late. Here comes Ivory Pawn, I'll get him up to 4 health. With 4 health, he's going to take 4 damage next turn. So Dixie is going to win by 1 turn. So those of you looking to build a sliver deck, Doppel Gadget may be the way to go if you've been having trouble getting it to work. So we'll see. Genostel put 4 more copies in his deck. That's not going to be enough. Unfortunately, he's going to take 4 on the chin next turn. That'll do it. Dixie, resource started the entire game, and still got there. Doesn't draw a shard again. What luck. But he's not going to need it. Swinging 5. 1 will be blocked. Here comes the 1 block. Not that it's going to matter. 4 damage comes through, and that is game. So Dixie goes ahead and takes the exhibition match against his buddy Genostel. We saw Dixie's deck get sort of resource starved there and wasn't able to do much of anything, unfortunately. So we saw a little bit of a sliver deck, which we haven't featured here on Shardcast. I know that there have been talks that maybe the sliver deck's a little too slow, or maybe it's a little too narrow. Doppel Gadget definitely does help it. So maybe it's something you might want to toy with. But in the meantime, please again check out the links below here, as I'll have links to Dixie's YouTube page as I pull this video off of there. Dixie does have a few more Hex videos on there. Also some other videos as well for other different games. Also, make sure you follow me on Twitter and my Twitch feed there, as well as subscribe here to the Shardcast page. That way you know when there is a new Shardcast coming available and you can view that. Also, like I try to do, like I said at the beginning of this broadcast, if you'd like to be featured on Shardcast, please let me know that you have a video available. All I ask is that your gameplay screen be free of any obstructions so that I can feature it in a non-obstructed manner so everybody can see. I'd love to feature it. Just let me know where it's located. Give me a heads up. I'll be sure to feature it on here for you. But until next time, this is episode 37. We'll see you on episode 38 of Shardcast. Brace yourself.